Little fact about me. I have swum competitively in 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. One was in Coventry. The other was in Crystal Palace. Graham Ruthven.
Wow.
What a link. Wow.
Hopefully not the giant glass exhibition centre that was destroyed in a fire in the 1930s that Crystal Palace FC are named after. Another palace.
I mean, I started driving in 2001. We've established that. I'm not that old, but thank you.
But you started swimming in the 30s, right?
Yeah, he had quite a swimming career.
I had like one of those Victorian get-ups that I wore.
Like a drawstring suit.
That's
Walk
right.
before you run, swim before you drive. I think that's the expression. Yeah.
That's right.
That's
And
right,
keep rolling. That's what they say, Joe.
It was a different swimming pool that you swam in. But yes, Crystal Palace, named after an actual Crystal Palace that no longer exists. Last season, there were points when it seemed Oliver Glasner might burn Crystal Palace, the club, down. What a link there between the two things. Such was his frustration that bubbled away over the course of the season. There was a period in the winter where he directly challenged the club's ownership due to the number of key players that he was losing. Seemed like the Mark Gahey transfer would be the final straw. And maybe it was, because he ultimately left Palace at the end of the season. But there was a point when people thought he would either resign or he would be fired. They lost to Macclesfield in the FA Cup, obviously as defending FA Cup champions, which was a historically bad defeat. But he saw out the season, he steadied things, and more than that, Palace ended up winning the Conference League, the first European trophy. Only the second trophy in total in their entire history. Obviously, Glasner won the first in the form of the FA Cup the season before. So that wasn't a bad way for Oliver Glasner to sign off. There will be more about him in our Premier League previews to come later this week. But staying with Crystal Palace, that meant that they had to bring in a new manager over the summer, and they did that by hiring Pierre Sage, which I think that's how you pronounce that name. But he was Lens manager last season, so he arrives in the Premier League with a good reputation. As I've mentioned already with my other team, Brentford, they signed Sangare from Lens, but Lens pushed PSG closer in Ligue 1 last season than they had any right to do. So his stock is quite high, but he's untested in English football. In terms of transfers, Maxence Lacroix left to join Chelsea, which is a huge blow because he has been, in my opinion, their best defender these last few seasons. Brennan Johnson is also gone. That move did not work out at all for him after joining from Spurs. But Palace got Dwight McNeil for him from Everton in a very rare, genuine swap deal, which you do not see very often at the top level, those two players going in opposite directions. Otherwise, it has been a very quiet summer for Palace in the transfer market because until a day ago, they actually hadn't spent a penny. As I said, Dwight McNeil was a swap deal. Oscar Mingueza and Takahiro Tomiyasu, obviously former Arsenal defender, they've both joined, but both as free agent signings. Anand Kalali has joined from Union Saint-Gilloise in the last 24 hours as we're recording for roughly €20 million. He is a right winger, which is interesting for Xavier Gozo, who is still expected to join, may have a little bit more competition than when we spoke about that last week, about that deal. So yeah, quiet summer for Crystal Palace. Maybe Glasner was right all along, because I think some Palace fans are getting a bit exasperated about what they see as a lack of ambition for a club that has won a trophy in each of the last 2 seasons, and by winning the Conference League last season are into the Europa League this season. So they've got some real objectives to target this season. Not a lot of squad turnover so far. Palace might argue that the construction of their new £150 million main stand accounts for where a lot of their money is going right now. The construction on that project started that summer. It's projected to be finished by late 2028 or early 2029. That project has been really difficult to get off the ground as long as I can really remember. Crystal Palace, they've tried to develop that ground. So that's
I used to have my Wimbledon season ticket in that stand. It is the oldest stand in the world. It's I think it predates that Crystal Palace.
And it's part of the it's part of the charm of Selhurst Park. But it feels like I've seen about 3 or 4 different projects that have failed to get off the ground. So the fact that this one is actually happening is a big deal. Might be impacting things on the pitch. As I mentioned, Pierre Sage is Palace's new manager. Only his 3rd gig as a manager, so he is fairly inexperienced. In fact, he hasn't even managed 100 professional games as a coach. So that's something to keep in mind. As I mentioned, did a tremendous job at Lens last season. Obviously, there's an element of the unknown over Palace's style of play right now because of the managerial change. Lens were a really proactive team. They ranked as one of the best teams in Europe for high turnovers, and when they won the ball back, they would attack at speed. Palace under Glasner were a vertical team. I thought of them as having like pressing triggers in their mid block. I don't know if I would count them as like a super aggressive team out of possession in the way that Lens were under Sage. So it'll be interesting to see if he turns the dial up in that respect this season. So far in pre-season, Sage he's stuck with a back three, the shape that obviously Oliver Glasner used. That means the width comes from the wing backs, and then it's two narrow attacking midfielders behind a central striker. That's how Glasner's Palace shaped up, and it's how they've shaped up in pre-season. It's also broadly how Lens on paper shaped up under Sage, so it seems like they've done a bit of research there. They see a bit of continuity, while also maybe wanting to become slightly more proactive. It's just about whether they have the players to do that. In terms of those players, they do still have some key players left, despite selling so much talent these past couple seasons. Adam Wharton, I think, is Crystal Palace's prize asset now. It's actually not guaranteed that he will still belong to Palace when the transfer window closes, but for the time being, he is one of their best players. He is really efficient. I'm a huge Adam Wharton fan. I think he's destined for the top level. He's really efficient at playing forwards with the ball. He is the player who gives them an element of control in the centre of the pitch. I think his defensive game could use some refinement, but he has huge potential. And when he eventually leaves, and he will, it'll be for a lot of money. I think Palace want like 80 million plus for him when they look at someone like Elliot Anderson going for the money that he went for. In the attack, Jean-Philippe Mateta was Palace's top scorer last season with 12 goals in the league. He is a proper focal point of a striker. He's a bit of a battering ram. He has got a terrific celebration where he assaults the corner flag and the fans shout boom as he does it. It's a whole thing. It's a whole routine. I love it. It's the best celebration in the Premier League. So he will probably be the starter at the 9, even though he keeps getting linked with other clubs. Nothing has materialised yet. Palace spent big on Jorgen Strand-Larsen in January. At this point, seems like he's going to be the depth striker behind Mateta. But as I say, the transfer window is still open. That could change. Ismaila Sarr, he also warrants a mention because he has done an excellent job of stepping into the Michael Elise / Eberechi Eze void. He's not quite up to that level. I don't want to oversell him, but he had 10 goal contributions in the league last season. He's quick on the break. I also think Sarr makes really quick decisions in and around the box, which I like. I rate him pretty highly. And then Daniel Munoz is another player who is really important to the Palace attack down the right side, where he has the freedom to get forward at will. On paper, he is a right wing back, but when you watch Palace, he's a right-sided forward, the way that he gets forward for this team. So he's really important. And then at the back, I have to mention a certain Chris Richards, the last remaining member of the back three that also included Lacroix and Mark Gahey last season. They have both now gone, and Chris Richards, I think, is going to take on an even bigger role this season as a real leader for this Crystal Palace side. So it is a squad with quality, although not as much quality in past seasons because of the number of stars that they have sold on for big money, which brings me on to my VSP, which is that Palace will be in the top 8 on Halloween. On October 31st, they will be in the top 8. They have a pretty kind start to the season, where up until the 31st of October, looking at their fixtures, I think they only play one top quality team, and that's Manchester City, who, as we saw in the Community Shield, have their own weaknesses. But otherwise, they have games against Everton, Fulham, Ipswich, Leeds, Forest, Brighton, and Newcastle. Until then, I think obviously the way that the Premier League is, there's quality in that list. But I think some of those matches will suit Palace. I think Palace will start strongly, even though Man City are the only team that in the Premier League that had more players at the World Cup than Crystal Palace this summer, which is quite surprising. So some of their players might be a little bit jaded, but nonetheless, I think the continuity is going to help them start the season strong. And then I think the problems could come as Sage is asked to evolve things. That might be where they falter, but I think they're going to be a top 8 side by the time kids are trick-or-treating around my house.